Hi, welcome, Joe. My name is Larry Evans. Welcome to the Clarksville Association of Realtors and the Government Affairs Committee candidate interviews, and we really appreciate you being here. And I know a little bit about you, but we're going to have you talk to us about you in just a minute. Down on that end is Christian Black, and here is Valerie Dirks. And you've already met these two, so Jen Harper and Deb Kulick. So welcome, and I'm going to give you 2 minutes to introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about you, and then we'll start with the questions.
Okay, sounds good. Good morning again. It's nice to meet all of you all, and thank you for the invite. As stated, I'm Joe Shakeenab, and I'm the city councilman for Ward 11. And as you know, Ward 11 comes right off of exit 4 on Wilma Rudolph to the southwest. I'm going down to Dunbar Cave Road, back on Dunbar Cave to Rossview Road, back to the interstate. So all of the Rossview, the St. B area, all that area is my area. I was appointed on the council on the end of March, and I'll be running in November. I'm unopposed. Since I've been on there, I met with every department head to learn a little bit about each department and then some of their challenges to governing, and working to figure out how I can be an impact to each of those departments to make sure they have the resources they need to do the things that they need to do to provide services for the city. So that's me in a nutshell. As far as my position on the city council, I love nature. Personally, I love to get out there and enjoy the coolness, the warmth, whatever it is, the rain, the sleet. Just get out there in it and be a part of it because we can't change it, so we might as well embrace it. So that's a little bit about me.
All right, we'll just start down here with Christian, and you have the first question.
All right. So I'll just start out with, our community's growing. There's always a balance to stay ahead of growth with the cost of infrastructure expanding. What's your philosophy on growth and effectively supporting it? And what ideas do you have for funding the infrastructure and services needed to support the growth of Clarksville?
So that's 2 questions or 3 questions? I mean, that's a lot of questions.
Seems
Like.
10 of them.
Kind of the chicken or the egg, we got to have growth to have the money to do things, but we need to do the things to support the growth. So,
Okay.
Are you a proponent of trying to create the higher density to bring the dollars in where the infrastructure already exists, or stop, kind of like the mentality of stopping the growth until we get all of our roads and sidewalks and everything straightened out?
That's better. I can understand it now. Well, I'll say the chicken and the egg coexist. Both are already here. The chicken has been laying the eggs for a while. The eggs are hatching. So however you want to frame it, they coexist. The growth coexists with the city itself. They go hand in hand. You can't stop it, right? If you just look at the history of the city, it's been growing. So I think it's here. But the thing that I really look at is why I ask myself, why aren't we doing more to put the infrastructure in place? If we know it's growing, and we look at the trends for the last 15 years, it's been growing. Well, what are we doing, right? Are we going slow, taking a slow approach? Because if it's growing, that means money is coming in. So now it's just a matter of where the priorities for that money that's coming in. Right. So, and that's my stance of what I want to examine. Where's the money? If we have priorities, if we have plans to promote the infrastructure, then we need to follow those plans. We don't need to deviate and slow the infrastructure down, because we all know, we hear it every day from residents, regardless of where they live in the city, that infrastructure is a major problem, right, at certain times of the day. So
prioritize the money.
Yeah, and I always say, as an elected official, it's not the developer's issue, right? It's not the regional planning commission's issue. It's not the street department or any other department's issue. It's the government's issue to make sure the infrastructure is in place, because the government is the one that controls that pot of money. So if you're going to have a plan, stick to the plan, build the infrastructure, and talk to those departments to figure out their challenges. As an example, the fire department, right? What are your challenges to traffic? And we know that response time is critical for them, and they respond to everything, whether it be home, right, or whether it be vehicle accident, they respond to it. So can they get to where they need to get at a reduced time? And if infrastructure is the problem, then we need to be addressing that from that particular standpoint, from safety standpoint. You're right. So there are a lot of things, and that's why I said the chicken and the egg coexist. The growth is here. The growth has been here for a while, but it seems like, from the perspective of a lot of residents, that the infrastructure is just too slow. We're not doing enough, and that's the elected officials' problem, right, to do more.
All right.
Very good.
Well, as a resident living off Cardinal Lane, I appreciate your thought on that because it is truly an issue. So my question is, do you support increased density and alternative housing solutions to help alleviate the housing burden and affordability crisis?
In some areas, I would say yes, but again, it goes back to what's there, right? I don't want to build next to a mining zone just for the sake of putting more houses that maybe people can afford, because that's a bad area. Industrial park, close to a major plant. So for me, it's not a blanket yes or no. It's where it's going to be and how it's going to impact those particular residents. So if it's done right with a little thought into it, then yes. If it's a leftover, then no. So.
Thank you.
With the historic number of rezoning cases in the county, do you foresee impact fees being assessed at the city level? How do you feel about impact fees in the housing market?
Well, at this point, I don't think fees should be assessed, right? Because again, we've been doing this for a while now. This is not something we just started last year. Right? So if we've been doing it for a while and we look at the trends, do we have the money we need? And I think we have the money we need. But it's just getting those things in place takes a long time. Right? Finding those crews, getting those contracts. So all that type of stuff needs to be worked out. The purchasing process. What is that process, right? If it's tedious, then how do we streamline the process to get things in place, to get things rolling?
Yeah.
Right? If there's a challenge with getting the fiber optics removed, right? What is that process? Who's doing that communication? Who's at that particular table talking about that to get that resolved, right? So it's not just one thing. When we talk about fees, it's a lot of other things as well. What are those little things that are hampering putting the right structure in place?
Do you think incentives for developers that are willing to dedicate a portion of their development to affordable housing is something that the city can get behind? Tax incentives and things like that?
I think the city could. It just depends on who's at the table, right? So yeah, I think the short answer, I think yes. If you're talking about a developer donating a certain amount of a bill to low income or whatever it is, I think the city would get behind it. But how are you going to incentivize that developer? Then that's the question, right? And that's why I said who's at the table, right? As long as you have the right people at the table, I think you can come out with the right solution. So it always goes back down to who's at this table.
Awesome. And sir, tell me, what does affordable housing actually mean to you?
Well, and since I've been on the council, this comes up every month, right? Affordable housing, affordable housing, affordable housing. So of course, just 6 months in the queue, I start to read a little bit about affordable housing to figure out what in the world is affordable housing, right? Because my concept and somebody else's concept is always going to be different, depending on where we're at in life, right? So, the definition, of course, you all know the definition. So we look at that definition, and then to me, I says, well, based on that particular definition, that 30% of the income, right, with all the utilities, well, who's really going to fit into that category, all right? So now it comes down to each individual, where you at in life and what you can afford. Because a guy that's in school, that's fresh out of high school, perhaps in college, first job, well, what he can really afford, right? Not a whole lot, depending on his habits and things like that. So to me, affordable housing is going to always go back to that particular individual, not as a case. So we have to give some type of definition, but 30% could be a lot, right? If you're only making $30,000 or $28,000 and you talk about 30%, well, how are you going to live if you match that to living cost? So it's going to be a challenge. When you talk about the individuals that are on the lower spectrum of income, it's going to be a challenge for those individuals.
There are many parts of the city that have been systematically neglected, the different parts. You're representing Ward 11, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Ward 11. Sorry, I'm brain fogged this morning. What would you propose to do to help alleviate some of these neglected areas across the city, even though it's maybe not necessarily in your ward?
Well, and that's when the people should really hold those elected representatives' feet to the fire. Right? Because if I'm gonna run and the people are gonna tell me, well, I want to make sure we have a park as an example. Right? Mm-hmm. And I says, yes, I'm gonna make sure we have a park or we have a library. And then I get in the position and I really don't care about a park, right? Because now a lot of other things are coming at me all the time.
Uh-huh.
Well, but it goes back to the individuals, right? You put some pressure on them, right? If this is what you want and this is what they ran on, saying they're gonna provide, then hold them accountable, right? Don't let up and don't have a forgiving spirit. Right? Turn the heat up on them all the time because they volunteered for the position and they can always quit. If they can't do it, then step out of the way and let somebody that's qualified, that has the energy, do it.
Do it. Okay.
Right? You either meet the standards or you don't. There is no in between. Right?
What are some things you would like to see in different parts of the city that maybe help with the infrastructure and help with traffic and things like that?
Well, for one, especially for me in my ward, Rossview Road. Widen Rossview Road. That's my thing, right? And I've already been talking to the commissioner, the county commissioner for that particular area, and the state reps for that particular area. We need Rossview Road widened. Right? Whatever it's going to cost, then the state needs to be willing to foot that. Right? We need to start talking now. We need to look at the space that's not built on and secure that space now before that space is built on.
Right.
Right? So if the people are saying Rossview Road is a mess, then we need to fix it. We can't say, well, that's a state road, that's the state's problem. No, that's our problem. Right? We're in the city, it's within city limits, that's our problem. Fix the problem.
So in regards to infrastructure, that's pretty much everybody's hot button. When you're looking at Clarksville chat or just talking to people around the community. If more money is needed to fix that problem, where do you think it comes from in the budget? Or I know it's been said before that our city is a little bit lower in regards to what we charge on property taxes versus like Murfreesboro and other cities of our size. So would that be something that I guess you would consider, so I guess the dilemma is people want the infrastructure fixed, but they also don't want their tax raised. So, I mean, kind of back to that dilemma there.
Well,
so what's your thoughts
but then
about
my
that?
question is, do we have to raise the tax? Right? If you look at the last city's budget that just passed in June, we didn't raise taxes. Right? And some departments requested more resources and they got more resources. Right? So are we doing what we need to do with the funds that we have? Mm-hmm. That's the first question. Right? Where are the funds being allocated to right now? And again, if we have these projects that have been forecasted for years and years and years and they're not being conducted or fulfilled, then where's that money that was matched against it? So to me, I don't think funding is the problem. I think doing the work is the problem. Mm-hmm. Right.
Thank you.
And that's just from me being in the seat for 6 months.
Right.
Right. And just looking at
Sitting back
how
and
the
watching.
game, yes.
Yeah.
With increased growth in the city, how do you plan on addressing the increased burden on our existing emergency services?
Well, and I said as an elected official, we have to really talk to those departments, right? We have to talk to them. That's one of the first things I did when I was appointed. I went and met with every department because I want to know what is the challenge to your department. Right now, when they tell me the challenge to the department, then I don't want to second guess them. Right? So if the fire chief says I need 3 new trucks and 30 people, then that's his need. Right? That's his need based off the trends of the growing population. So now my role is to figure out how to get the resources for that. Right? How to look at the total budget and say where can we appropriate the right amount of money for the right place at the right time. And the same thing, if individuals are calling, right, for the street department as an example, and they have an issue after issue after issue, and the street department can't respond, or if they're not responding in a timely manner, within 10 days, 30 days, whatever that timely manner may be, then that's a problem for us, right? Do they have the right resources they need? And if not, what are we doing? But those departments must raise their hand and says, hey, I need more resources.
Okay.
Thank you.
If elected, what would your relationship be, if any, with the real estate community?
Well, I don't know what my relationship would be. I guess that's something we're gonna have to have a cup of tea or a cup of coffee or something to talk about, right?
Okay.
Yes, because I think right now I have a good relationship with just about every major entity within the city, because I have nothing, no game, right? I have no end game. Because my goal is just to simply challenge myself mentally to do my part to make sure the city is a little bit better, right? That's my end state. If I can do that, then I have accomplished something. If I don't do that, then I have failed, right? And I'll be the first one to raise my hand and say, I failed, I'm ready to step out of the way.
Okay.
That's all I have.
That's it. You got anything? Well, we want to thank you for coming, and we appreciate your willingness to run for office. I'm going to give you 2 minutes to make a closing statement, closing remarks, and you're on camera, and so this will be videoed later, so go right ahead.
Well, again, I just thank you guys for all you do, and for taking the time to set up these interviews with the candidates, and then just really, making sure that they're helping to make sure that the right people are in the right place for the right purpose. And again, like I said, my goal here is simply to do nothing more than to do my part as a citizen to make sure the city is a little bit better for each and every one of our residents. So again, I'm just grateful for the opportunity to serve, and with that, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Thank you for coming.
Yes, sir.
In regards to that Rossview Road widening